Welcome to This Is Her America. I'm your host, Shaida. Her America is my way of crashing down on liberal narratives everywhere. On this podcast, listen as I give my hot conservative take on all things society and culture. I'm back with another interesting topic, equality versus equity. What's the difference? We hear this term equity a lot in mainstream culture and politics, and it seems that all of the progressive leaders want to input a more equitable system from the federal level to even our state and local levels. But I think before we jump on board with the equity train, we need to understand what is the main goal of equity. And is it something that we should strive for? I think that equity is not a terrible thing. But if it's done in the right way, it can be prosperous and create a security of abundance for a lot of people. But I don't think that's the direction that a lot of these state legislators and even Congress members are wanting. Equity in definition means to refer to the principle of fairness, modeled differently in many scenarios. With equity, we hear a lot about racial equity. It is no longer fair to have people of different races just be equal, but the balance need to be fair, so it's just and equitable. I want to read a little short script from an article that I picked up. The article is called Equity versus Equality, What is the Difference? And it's by thoughtcode.com. And the key takeaways from this article are: equality is providing the same level of opportunity and assistance to all segments of society. Equity is providing various levels of support and assistance depending on specific needs or abilities. Equity refers to the provision of varying levels of support based on specific needs to achieve greater fairness of treatment and outcomes. The National Academy of Public Administration defines equity as the fair, just, and equitable management of all institutions serving the public directly or by contract, the fair, just, and equitable distribution of public services and implications of public policies, and a commitment to promote fairness, justice, and equality in the formation of public policy. In essence, equity, it can be defined as a means of achieving equality. And that's what I think equity should be. I don't think that equity rhetoric started until the coronavirus pandemic started, especially with the whole vaccine distribution. As of late last year and even earlier this year, as vaccines started rolling out and more people were getting ready to get the get the vax, whether it was by Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer or whatever company that came out with their vaccine. So a lot of representatives, hospitals, making it a point to make sure that Black people, because at some point we are disenfranchised by the healthcare system, to be in line, especially ahead of those that were probably in dire need of the vaccine, such as the elderly populations and those who have weak immune systems, who have cancer or other illnesses that make them immune compromised. I thought this policy was silly to begin with. I thought it was unfair and unjust to put people who were in dire need of this vaccine, because it was a miracle at the time, to make a to promote status quo because you think in some ways black people had just been treated differently by the healthcare system. And you know what? They're not entirely wrong about historically black people not always receiving quality healthcare services. And sometimes that has with substantial reasoning. If you look at the civil rights movement and the Tuskegee experiment, where the CDC sanctioned experiments on African American men back in the 1930s through 1970s, that was a real problem. Black people not always receiving the best of the best when it comes to medical care. But that doesn't mean that we now have to reverse the wrongdoings of the past, especially when we as a society, as a country, have strived for better things and have progressed forward. And so I thought this was just a regression. And according to certain poll data, minorities, especially Black Americans, are getting the vaccines even less. So whatever this policy was, it's not helping anyone. It's not helping the elderly population, and it's certainly not helping the Black populations, because even if you did roll out the red carpet, it seems that Black people just don't want the vaccines, the COVID vaccine either way. Now, whether or not you're for or against this particular vaccine is another discussion. In this article, it continues. For example, the Help America Vote Act requires that people with disabilities be provided with access to polling places and voting systems equal to that of able-bodied people. Similarly, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, requires that persons with disabilities have equal access to public facilities. This is an example of equity can be defined as a means of achieving equality, especially during election season, where you see that different facilities will have access or create some sort of parameter for people who have disability, whether they're in a wheelchair or walker, being able to get into the facility as smoothly as possible as their fellow able-bodied Americans. And it is important to help people who may have trouble pick up just how with the Help America Vote Act, people with disabilities have every right to put in casting their ballot as people who seem mobile enough to just get up, get out of bed, walk out the house, put in your ballot and vote and be on with your day. And this right here is an example of equality, because equality says everyone can get a seat at the table and everybody should get a seat at the table. Whereas equity says only certain people get a seat at the table. Back to where my COVID vaccine example, Black people getting in line first. Only certain people can get in line before others, even though that was not the most just approach, because according to the statistics, elderly people were vastly vulnerable to getting this virus and not recovering from it than people of younger ages. And that goes according to Black people. There were going to be a lot of elderly Black people that were going to lose out of getting this vaccine promptly because the government and hospitals decide to make racial status quo objective to give this to those who seem to be disenfranchised. In another article by Reason.com, Free Minds, Free Markets, this article was written back in November of 2020, so right in the midst of the general election of 2020. The article is titled Kamala Harris Says Equal Outcomes Should Be the Goal of Public Policies. In the article, and she says, there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests, oh, everyone should get the same amount. The problem with that, not everybody's starting in the same place. She's not terribly wrong about that, and that's where where the quote ends. Later on in the article, it says, this may seem like a trivial difference, but when it comes to public policy, the difference matters. A government should be obligated to treat all citizens equally, giving them the same access to civil rights and liberties like voting, marriage, religious freedom, and gun ownership. The government cannot deny rights to certain people because they are black, female, Muslim, etc. This would be unequal treatment. A mandate to foster equity, though, would give the government power to violate the rights in order to achieve identical social results for all people. In accordance with this thinking, the authorities might be justified in giving some people more rights than others. Indeed, this would arguably be strictly necessary in order to create a society where everybody ends up in the same situation. So this article was written after Kamala released a short animated clip of explaining the difference between equality and equity. This was right before the election, like great timing, trying to show the American people that as a newly elected official, that you will be treating Americans differently based on race, gender, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, however you want to put it. Just because they seem disenfranchised. And that was kind of wrong of Kamala Harris. She was condemned widely everywhere for it, from Representative Liz Cheney, who accused the now MVP, sounding just like Karl Marx. Oh, has Liz Cheney has fallen from her ways. She's right. Equality says no one is disadvantaged, when equity says some are, so they have to be accommodated. Where going back to my Americans with Disability Act from the other article, it shares how people with disability people with disabilities need to have access to the same facilities as able-bodied people. So a lot of buildings are contracted to have a, like, what do you call those, like a ramp, where it's easier to take someone up in a wheelchair, or even someone with crutches that may have trouble going up the stairs. And this way, everybody, it's not taken away from the people who are able-bodied, but making sure that everyone in some way, no matter where their disability lie, if they have any disability at all, can have equal access to the building. It doesn't take away from the able-bodied people to have a ramp near a building, so people who are disabled can have an easy walk access into the building to handle their business, whether it's a voting booth, what do you call it? A polling place? Yes, a polling place where they go to vote, or going to the mall, or school, or wherever they are. And so this equity means, equity in Kamala Harris' vision means that some people are going to have to be knocked down a peg or two just so other people can rise up. And I think that's wrong. I think one thing seriously endangering to equity is that it ignores human nature, that people are just not inherently different. Let's say in a perfect world, everyone will be born without a disability. It doesn't mean we don't have different traits, that we have different interests, that we have different strengths, different abilities that kind of draws us to different direction in life. Sure, what if we gave everybody $100 bill? There are going to be some people that are going to blow that $100 bill on a pair of new sneakers or purse. There are going to be some people that are going to invest it and create wealth off of it. Investing and multiplying that money to hundreds and thousands of dollars and sitting in their bank account. There are some people who are going to take it and put it in a savings account, or put a portion of it and spend the rest on whatever they like. The thing is, everybody has a different means to an end in life, so therefore it's better to treat everybody equally instead of equitably. Take Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Jeff Bezos, Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Kim Kardashian West, for example. I know there's a lot of people. Gates, Winfrey, Benzo, Jay-Z, the Kardashian West. According to Business Insider, Forbes, and other business outlets or media outlets that focus mainly on business, all of these individuals are considered billionaires, according to their net worth. Looking at all these individuals, they started in life completely differently and went into various fields, from cosmetics to entertainment to music to marketing to technology, and yet all of them got to a point of becoming billionaires. Now, there could be an argument that throughout their careers, some of them may have been treated a little differently than others because of certain outward characteristic, whether it came to their race, gender, or social economic status. But it did not stop people like Oprah Winfrey, Kanye West, Jeff Bezos, Kim Kardashian from taking and seizing every opportunity they got and working their way up the ladder, because they all had a different dream, different vision, different strengths and abilities, and they had passion in whatever they wanted to do. Kim Kardashian would probably have never really made it in the technology world like Bill Gates have with Microsoft, because in her eye, she wasn't in the public view. We don't see Kim as much of a STEM icon. She doesn't really seem to be involved in the technology field. That's just not her place. She probably would have been less successful being a technology person, because that's just not where her strengths are or her abilities are. Whereas in cosmetics, media, shaper line, she is booming. Whereas Jeff Bezos may have not been as successful going to cosmetics as he did going into the marketing industry. Equality says, let everyone have the same opportunity. Let everyone live up to their standards. Equity says, everyone needs to live up to one standard. If we have lived in a more equitable world, Oprah Winfrey would have never gotten her show. Jeff Bezos would not be the CEO of the Amazon that we all know and have today. We probably wouldn't be blessed with a Jesus is King album or KKW Beauty lipsticks. There is more prosperity in a world where we prioritize equality over equity, because everyone is always, there's going to be somebody that's always more advantaged than you are, and there is going to be somebody who's going to be less advantaged than you are, even if you start at the same same place, go this go the same distance. Some people are faster runners than others. Do I make a point? And so, with Kamala Harris coming out with her short animated video saying that she wants to be part of a government, create a government where it fosters equity in order for people to have more rights than others, or to create equal social results. It's kind of disheartening, because what we're saying is having unique talents, having unique differences, merits, is now suddenly a sin. And it's not. So, take away from this as you will. An equal society is a just society. And equality should be a means to an end. Just because somebody seems less disadvantaged than another person, it doesn't mean that other person did something to ensure that person was disadvantaged. It means that we all have our different talents, our different strengths, our different merits and visions, and we all should give each other a seat at the table. We should all allow each other to have a seat at the table, because most prosperity happens when you have different people from different backgrounds coming together. That's all I got today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you haven't already, quick subscribe to this Her America podcast, and I'll be coming out with more episodes soon. Have a nice day, and you'll hear from me next time.